I never thought a simple gesture could make my world feel like it was falling. It was a quiet afternoon, the kind where everything seemed still, almost too still. I had spent the morning cleaning and taking care of the house, but my body felt drained. I wasn't getting any younger, and it seemed like every muscle and my body was screaming for rest. I had just set my husband Dirk off to work and decided to take a quick nap. But that's when my nephew Ethan knocked on the door, 24. Ethan had grown into a handsome young man, and recently something about him had shifted. It wasn't obvious, but he noticed how he looked at me differently. A look I couldn't quite put my finger on. He had always been the quiet, respectful type, and today was no different at least. "Done the surface, Aunt Laura. You look tired then," said as he stepped inside, his voice soft but warm. "Can I help with anything?" I smiled weakly, my eyes half closed from exhaustion. "A back rub. Would be nice if you don't mind." He hesitated for a second almost, like he was considering something, before nodding. "Of course I know exactly where it hurts." Ethan's son sat down behind me, his hands slowly touching my shoulders. His touch was firm, almost too firm. I tried to lax, but there was something about his grip, something, a little too deliberate. It wasn't the usual casual rub I'd get from him when he was younger. This felt different. He pushed deeper, into my muscles, and for a moment I tried to nurture the tension building in the room. But when his fingers moved lower, along back, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was crossing a line. The air felt thick with something unspoken. Something that made my pulse quicken. Is that better? Ethan's son's voice was lower now, almost, like a whisper. He was so close that I could feel his breath on my necks, sending a chill down my spine. I nodded, though my body felt anything but relaxed. Something inside me told me to pull away. But I didn't move. My thoughts were racing, trying to make sense of the way Ethan's hands lingered, the way his touch didn't feel like it should. Then he said something that sent a jolt through me. "You've been so strong, Aunt Laura. You deserve to feel something more." His words lingered in there, and before I could respond, his hand slid further down, and I froze. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat as Ethan's son lingered on my back. The room seemed to close in around me, the air thick with tension. It tried to ignore the confusion swirling inside my chest, telling myself that I was overthinking it. But his touch was different. His fingers pressed deeper, moving with a purpose that felt too deliberate, too intimate for the situation. I could feel my pulse racing, but I couldn't bring myself to pull away, Aunt Laura. "You deserve to relax." Ethan murmured, his voice low and smooth. "You're always doing so much for everyone. Just let me take care of you." Foreigns in AED, unsure of what else to do. Part of me wanted to stop him, to tell him that this wasn't right. But another part of me, the part that had been overwhelmed for so long, just wanted to give in. I didn't want to be the person who always said, not the person who always resisted when help was offered. And for a moment, I let myself believe his words. But then something shifted. His hands moved lower, further down my back, brushing against areas that made me tense. My skin crawled under his touch, and I tried to force myself to breathe, to think clearly. Was imagining this? Or was he testing the boundaries? "Aunt Laura, are you okay?" Ethan's son's voice was now barely a whisper, and I could feel him leaning. Closer, his breath warm against the back of my neck. I froze. I didn't answer. I couldn't. And his hands slid lower, again dangerously close to where I wasn't sure I wanted them to go. The warmth of his touch seemed to burn through the fabric of my shirt, and I felt myself shiver. I could feel his presence so intensely now, as if there was no space between us. No boundaries left. And then, without warning, he whispered something that sent a shock through my entire body. I've always noticed you. Aunt Laura, you've always been so beautiful, did you? Enjoy this intense tale of secrets and tension. Don't miss out on more thrilling infidelity. Stories like share and subscribe for more gripping narratives that will leave you questioning everything. My mind went blank. His words echoed in my ears, and I couldn't process them fast enough. What was he saying? What was happening? I tried to pull away, but Ethan's hands remained firmly planted on my back, holding me in place. I turned my head slightly, just enough to catch a glimpse of his face. His eyes were dark and tense, his usual calm demeanor replaced by something else. Something I couldn't read. Wasn't the same nephew I'd known. Something had changed and it felt like I was in a nightmare. I couldn't wake up from Aunt Laura. I just want you to feel. Could you deserve it? I could feel the tension between us grow, suffocating Mimi. Mind was screaming at me to stop this, to get up and leave. But my body betrayed me. I couldn't move, didn't know what to do. And then, as if sensing my hesitation, Ethan soon made a decision. For both of us, he shifted his lips, barely brushing my ear, his words sending H through my entire body. Don't worry. Aunt Laura, I won't hurt you. But his voice had an edge to it, a quiet intensity that sent a wave of dread over me. I could feel the heat from Ethan's breath against my ear, but I didn't know how to react. His words hung in the air, heavy with meaning, yet I couldn't bring myself to confront him. It was like time had stopped, like the room had closed in on us, leaving no way out. I wasn't sure if I was still processing the situation, if I had simply become numb to the overwhelming tension. My body tensed, fighting against my mind, but it didn't seem to matter. His touch was too persistent, too commanding. I took a shallow breath, trying to steady myself. Ethan Stowe, I managed to say, but my voice trembled. It wasn't a command. It was a playa, but he didn't stop. He barely flinched instead. His hand slid further down my back over the curve of my spine until I felt his fingertips brush against the waistband of my pants. My heart pounded in my chest, and my skin felt like it was on fire. I wanted to push him away, to shout, but no sound escaped my lips. I could feel his fingers moving in deliberate circles. His touch, almost hypnotic. Aya, Ethan whispered again, his voice low and filled with something unfamiliar. You deserve to feel good. You've always been so strong for everyone else. Don't you want to feel good for yourself? I wanted to scream, to push him away, but my body froze. It was like I was trapped in my own skin, unable to break free from the grip he had on me, not just physically, but emotionally. My mind screamed at me to stand up to end this madness, but I couldn't. I couldn't find the words, the strength to pull away. Suddenly, I felt Ethan's pause, his fingertips lingering on my skin. As he spoke again, his voice softer now, more coaxing. You're beautiful, Aunt Laura. You've always been beautiful. You don't need to hide it. I felt his words sink deep inside me like a slow burning fire. I couldn't look at him. I couldn't face him. But I could feel his eyes on me, watching every reaction, every breath. It was as if he was waiting for something, waiting for me to give in, waiting for me to let go of the boundaries I had spent years building. I couldn't deny the pull of his presence. There was something in the way he was speaking to me, something in his touch that made it impossible to push him away. My mind and body were at war, each fighting for control, each desperate for a way out. But then, just as suddenly as it had started, Ethan stopped, his hand spout away, and the tension in the room seemed to snap like a rubber band. He couldn't breathe for a moment. My kiss tightened my thoughts. Scattered, it turned to face him, my eyes wide and confused, searching his expression for some sign, some explanation. But there was nothing. A calm, collected look that made it even more unsettling. Ethan's son smiled, his face relaxed as if nothing had happened. You okay, Aunt Laura? I nodded, unsure of what to say, unsure of what I was feeling. I didn't know if I was more afraid of what had just happened or what it meant for the future. But there was one thing I knew for certain this moment. This feeling would haunt me for a long time. I sat there frozen, my mind, scrambling to piece together the fragments of what had just happened, Ethan's sudden shift in demeanor, his calmness. The way he acted like nothing had changed left me reeling. I should have told him to leave, to never come back. But I couldn't. There was a strange sense of guilt gnawing at me, like I had allowed something to happen without stopping it, and now I could make sense of it. My heart raced, but I couldn't find the strength to speak. Ethan's son stood up, stretching his arms, as if he had just helped me through a normal back rub. His expression was casual almost, indifferent. This was just another day. I stared at him, my chest tightening with every breath. He seemed so calm, sound-affected. "Are you sure you're okay?" Aunt Laura's Ethan asked, his voice sincere, as though nothing had transpired. He was playing with me, and it made my stomach churn. I wanted to scream at him, tell him everything. I had felt the discomfort, the confusion, the disgust. But the words got stuck in my throat. "Yeah, I'm fine," it finally managed to say. Though the lie had tasted bitter, I forced a smile, even though I felt like I was suffocating under the weight of what had just happened. I had to get away from him. I had to get out of that room. But Ethan wasn't done. I saw it in his eyes, that familiar predatory glint that had been there earlier. His presence was almost too much to bear. I stood up, trying to appear confident, as though I hadn't just been rattled to my core. But as I moved toward the door, Ethan stepped in front of me, blocking my way on Laura. His voice was low, almost coaxing, but there was something darker lurking beneath the surface. No, you don't have top. Pretend everything's okay. You can talk to me. I'm here for you." I tried to move past him, but his hand shot out gently, grabbing my wrist. The contact was light, but it sent a shock through me. My heart pounded as I looked down at his hand, not daring to meet his eyes. I wanted to tell him to let go, to tell him to get away from me. But my body wouldn't cooperate. It felt like I was paralyzed, trapped in this suffocating moment. "You don't have to hide anything from—" He continued, his thumb brushing lightly over my skin. "I know you've been stressed, Laura. I can help. We can make you feel better together. It doesn't have to be so hard." I wanted to recoil, to push away. But his grip tightened just enough to make me feel it, just enough to make me doubt myself. I could feel my skin flush, my body betraying me in ways I couldn't understand. "Ethan," and I whispered, my voice shaky, "please let go for a moment." He just stood there, his gaze locked on Mike. He was measuring me, reading me. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating, as if everything was steering on the edge of something. Didn't want to acknowledge. Finally, he released me. But the space between us felt small. Smaller than ever. His smile was almost too calm. "Toe Asher." "Don't worry, Aunt Laura," he said, softly. "I'm just here to help. I always will be." The word sent a chill through me. I forced myself to walk past him, my heart still racing. But as I reached the door, I heard him speak one last time. "You can't run away from this. You'll come back, Tom. I know you will." The door slammed behind me, but his words lingered in my mind like an echo, a promise that I wasn't sure I could escape. I couldn't shake off Ethan's words. "You'll come back to me." They repeated in my mind like a broken record. What did he mean by that? What was treeing to make me feel I knew I had to get away? But every time I thought I was gaining control, I found myself slipping. Deeper the next morning, I woke up. Early, unable to sleep, haunted by the way Ethan had touched me, the way Hizzard had made me skin crawl, and yet at the same time left me feeling oddly exposed. I tried to tell myself, It was nothing that maybe it was a weird misunderstanding, a moment of weakness. But deep down, I knew better. I got out of bed trying to shake off the lingering thoughts, but they clung to me like a second skin as I walked to the kitchen. I almost wished Ethan's son would stay away. But when I saw him sitting at the breakfast table, his eyes met mine with an unsettling calm. Calmness. It was like Heck knew everything. Like he was waiting for him to come to terms with it. Whatever it was morning, Aunt Laura Ethan's song greeted me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Couldn't bring myself to respond. Immediately, I just nodded and tried to act like nothing had happened. I moved to the counter preparing coffee, but my hands were shaking. I could feel his gaze on me, though, and it made everything feel too tight, too. Real. You seemed a little off last night, he said, his voice casual, almost as if he were trying to make light of what had transpired. Is everything okay? I didn't know how to answer. How could I say, no, nothing's okay. You crossed a line, and now I can't look at you the same way. Again, I couldn't. I just couldn't find the words. I'm fine, I said, forcing the words. Out, I turned toward him, meeting his gaze, trying to project strength. I'm just tired. Ethan's son didn't respond. Immediately, he just looked at me like he was studying me, his expression unreadable then, as if nothing had changed. He smiled, that same unsettling smile. You don't have to be so serious. All the time, he said, his voice's mouth. I just want you to feel good, Aunt Laura. You deserve that, don't you? There was a sickening sweetness to his tone, like he was trying to soften them, manipulation, make it sound like concern. But I knew better into confusion. I felt shiver crawl down my spine, my instincts, screaming at me to get away. I am fine, Ethan. I repeated, my voice firmer this time. I didn't want to show him how affected I was, how much his presence alone was stared to make me question everything. I grabbed my coffee mug and walked toward the living room, needing space, needing distance. But Ethan's son didn't let me go that easily. He followed, me standing in the doorway, his posture casual but his eyes intense. You can't hide from this, Aunt Laura, he said, his voice now low, almost a whisper. I know. You felt something last night, and I know. You want more. I froze, the weight of his words crashing into me, my pulse quickened, my mind raised to find an answer, a way to deny what he was suggesting. But nothing came. His words hung in the air, poisoning the space between us. I don't want to hear this. I say it, my voice trembling, despite my best efforts. You need to leave. Ethan's son's eyes darkened, just for a moment. But then he gave a soft chuckle, like he was enjoying every second of my discomfort. You can't escape this, Alora. We're connected now, whether you like it or not. I couldn't stand the suffocating tension any longer. My head was spinning, my heart hammering in my chest. This wasn't something I could end, and not anymore. But could I really stand up to him? Could I break free from whatever hold he had on me? Just as I was about to respond, I heard the sound of the front door opening. My heart skipped a beat. It was my husband, Greg, walking in from work. Their relief that washed over me was instant, but it was also mixed with fear. What if he had noticed the tension between us? What if he had already figured it out? Hey, guys. All right, Greg said, looking between us. She's eyes flicking with concern. Everything okay here? I barely managed to smile. Yeah, everything's fine, I said, trying to sound normal. But I knew that I was lying, and Greg could sense it. He stepped closer, looking at Ethan. Then me, you sure? You both look a little off, and son was the first to respond. His voice is smooth, his face an open mask. Of innocence, everything's fine. Uncle Greg just talking to Aunt Laura. She a little stressed, but nothing serious. Greg nodded, but I could see the uncertainty in his eyes. It was like he knew something wasn't right. And for the first time, I felt like I was being trapped from all sides. Ethan's son's grip on me was tightening, and I didn't know how to get out of it the days after. That morning felt like a blur. I couldn't shake the feeling of Ethan's eyes following me, his words echoing in my head. We're connected. Whether you like it or not. It was ASF. He had planted a seed in my mind. And now it was growing, twisting everything into something dark and uncomfortable. Every time I saw him, my skin crawled. But I couldn't escape him. He was everywhere, acting like nothing was wrong. He'd smile at me with that unnerving calmness, and all I could do was return a stiff, forced smile as started, avoiding him coming up with excuses to leave the house, spending long hours at work, pretending to focus on anything but twisted web he was weaving around me. But no matter how far, I tried to distance myself. I could still feel him lurking in the corners, waiting for me to crack it. Wasn't until one evening when I came home late from a meeting that everything fell apart. I opened the door to the house expecting the usual silence. But this time, something was different. The lights were dim, the soft hum of the television filling the space, and I immediately felt an unsettle in my guest. I stepped into the living room and there he was. Ethan, sitting on a couch, his posture relaxed, but the moment answered, his eyes locked into mine, cold, and calculating. Aunt Laura. You're home late, he said, his voice laced with something I couldn't quite place. I froze, suddenly aware of how alone we were in the house. Greg had worked late that night, and I was left alone with Ethnon. I should have felt relieved, I told myself. But instead, the air seemed thick, suffocating. I had to finish some work, I stammered, trying to keep my voice steady. Then Son didn't move. He just stared at me with that same unnerving intensity. You know you don't have to. Pretend, Aunt Laura. I know things have been hard between us. My breath hitched in my throat. My heart raced, but I stood still, too afraid to turn. Away? What do you mean? He smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was a smile that sent a chill down my spine. A smile that made me feel like prey, trapped, unexposed. I know what you're really thinking, he said, his voice low and almost teasing. You've been avoiding me, haven't you? You're afraid of what we've done, afraid of what we might do. Again. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. But you can't avoid it. Forever. Aunt Laura, I'm here, and I always will be. My breath quickened and my mind raced. I had to get out of here. I had to leave before it went any further. But as I took a step back, Ethan was already standing in front of me, blocking my path. His body was close, too close, and I could feel the heat radiating from him. Aunt Laura, he said softly. Lie. His voice suddenly tender, almost soothing. You don't have to fight. This you don't have to keep pretending. I know how much you need this, how much you want it. I wanted to push him away, scream and call for help, but I couldn't. My body froze. His words were like a spell wrapping around me, making me question. Everything has reached out, brushing against my arm, lightly sending an electric shock through me. I know you're scared, he whispered, leaning in closer. But it's okay, you can trust me. And for a moment, I almost believed him. My heart raced, my mind a swirl of conflicting thoughts. Could it rust him? Was I really just being manipulated? Or was there a part of me that was too weak to resist? Suddenly, the sound of the front door opening shattered the silence. It was Greg. Ethan soon stepped back, Heist's expression instantly changing, returning to that calm, innocent mask. Just talking to Aunt Laura, he said smoothly, his voice as easy as ever. Nothing to worry about in AED, but my thoughts were elsewhere. Focused on Ethan's son, I couldn't let my guard down. Again, thirst of the night, piano blaras. I lay in bed later, my mind raised. Ethan's words as touch. Everything had been too much. It wasn't over. I knew that now he wasn't going to stop for.